Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The phone rattled on the fitting bench, no caller ID, urgent tone. I picked up before the second buzz and heard a flat voice. Postpone your wedding, no greeting, no pause. Who are you? My knuckles pressed the screen hard. Someone who cares more than you think. Click dead air. I'm Adrian, 28, 2 weeks sober from hoping my father calls. The tailor hovered with pins ready, eyes on my hesitation. Wrong number. I forced a breath that tasted like metal. I saved the unknown contact under Do Not Trust, then locked the screen. The jacket settled on my shoulders like a dare I might fail. Mate stepped in close, warm hand at my collarbone. You look fierce. His smile held steady, but his gaze searched. Quick run to the restroom, I said, already typing a message. Cousin Doru, emergency. Does this number ring any bells? I snapped a photo of the screen and sent it fast. The reply landed before the faucet stopped dripping. Family chat screenshot, my surname in all caps. A pin dropped on our venue parking lot. Tomorrow 1 p.m., same time as our rehearsal. I stared at the blue dot and pictured uniforms or worse. I walked back out and waved the tailor away. Needed space, needed air that didn't judge my heartbeat. Change of plan. I paid up front and asked for delivery. He nodded, confused, careful, eyes on the door like it might bite. I left with the hangar empty and my head full. In the car, I called the venue and moved the rehearsal. Small shift 30 minutes earlier, no email blast. Vendors confirmed with curt emojis and short yesies. Then I dialed security through a friend from college. 2 guards tomorrow, uninvited, family expected, silence then a price done. A text from my sister cut the engine noise. They still think you have a girlfriend, bare words, no cushioning. Source, my thumb shook but kept speed. Photos and a testimony if needed. She added 3 ellipses like a held breath with teeth. The files arrived while I stared at the windshield. Me hugging Anna from work, mid-laugh, arm half raised. A red circle around our bodies like a target practice sheet. Caption caught again, my stomach dropped but my spine locked. I zoomed in and saw the timestamp cropped to hide the hour. I called Anna right there with the windows up. Music bled through her line, distant clatter, someone's party. I'm getting married tomorrow and your face is on my phone. She exhaled sharply, then words crashed. Someone offered her money. He wanted a lie delivered during my vows. I gripped the wheel. How much? I kept my voice flat so it wouldn't crack. Enough to scare me, she whispered, then named a number. Don't take it, meet me before rehearsal. A beat, then a yes that sounded like she chose oxygen. I dropped the call and watched a cloud pass like a clock hand. At home, Mate stirred a pan and looked up quickly. I moved rehearsal. I gave him the new time. What are we bracing for? His spoon paused in midair. An interruption with props. I showed him the photos. He tapped the screen once, eyes narrowed, then kissed my forehead. We control the room, he said, voice low and clean. Not if they bring a pastor with an agenda. He set the spoon down and leaned on the counter. Then we cut his mic, a plan in 5 words. I felt my chest open like a window that finally slides. Doru called while plates clinked in the sink. They recruited a preacher who loves drama. He'll ask for objections early, his whisper thinned. And someone will stand, maybe Anna, unless we intercept. Not maybe, I said, and the word burned. I drafted a group text for our closest people. Security will check the list, no partner swaps. Any scene goes straight to the exit, no debates. You'll see me make a signal with 2 fingers. If I do, guide my mother outside, calm but firm. As I hit send, the phone shivered again. No ID, same number. I lifted it like a hot coin. Back out now, the voice ordered, colder this time. Tomorrow you will thank me, the line hissed. Tomorrow, I said, you can watch. I hung up. The apartment felt smaller, like the walls expected a knock. I opened the front door and checked the hallway anyway. No shadows waiting, just my pulse working overtime. I locked the deadbolt and pressed my forehead to the wood. The wood pressed back like it knew what was coming. The doorbell drilled through the hallway and I froze mid-step. I kept the chain on and asked who it was. Delivery for rehearsal, a voice answered too quickly. I checked the peephole and saw nothing but a cap brim. I slid the chain off anyway and readied my wrist. Why push now? A courier stood there with a garment bag and a paper slip. He asked for a signature and watched my hand like a hawk. Who sent it? My pen hovered and threatened to drop. No note, he shrugged and waited as if timing mattered. I signed, then checked the lining and found a folded card. The card carried a single sentence burned into. Jeeves dog. End it tomorrow or someone ends it for you. No signature, no flourish, just threat shaped like advice. I held the card over the sink and ran the tap. The ink bled slowly, which felt like a clock starting. Mate stepped behind me and took the card away. Keep it, he murmured, palm steady over mine. We document all of it, he slid the soggy piece into a bag. Then we choose where to stand, his forehead rested against mine. The kettle clicked off and reminded me to breathe. My phone vibrated with our gate code lighting up the screen. Anna texted that she was downstairs and hated this already. I told the porter to send her up and grabbed 2 mugs. She stepped in with rain on her hair and eyes fierce. Someone offered cash again, she blurted, jaw tight. Do you still have it? I pointed at her tote. She pulled an envelope and placed it on the counter. Different messenger, same instruction, speak during vows. Mate flicked on the recorder and set it near her hand. Tell us every detail you want on record. She listed the time and place and the man's description. No drama, just facts that stung because they matched the calls. They promised me a job if I performed tomorrow. Her shoulders shook once and then steadied like a metronome. Will you stand with us before rehearsal? I asked. I will meet you outside first, she answered without blinking. I do not trust the aisle anymore. Smart, the plan moved a notch sharper in my head. Bring the envelope, we hand it to the manager. She nodded and hugged both of us with small, stubborn arms. After she left, I dialed the venue again and requested a walkthrough. The manager agreed and asked if everything was sunny. Clouds, I said, and we both knew what that meant. He promised an extra staffer and a quiet room near the stage. I asked for control of the microphone feed and heard a pause. You want the switch? He asked after a measured breath. Yes, if anyone grandstands, we cut them off. Fine, you handle the cue, he cleared his throat once. I prefer applause to spectacle, he hung up cleanly. I mapped the route in my head and felt a door unlock. Doro called with street noise flooding his end of the line. Update, the saboteur recruited a backup singer. A second voice, I repeated though I already heard it. A man from their church who loves a crowd. Then he meets security first, I answered and booked a third guard. I drove to the florist and canceled aisle petals without explanation. Less tripping hazards if people start lunging for attention. The owner looked puzzled and then very impressed. Bolder look anyway, she said and scribbled a credit note. I left with nothing visible but everything tighter. Outside, a black sedan crawled past twice and parked across the street. I lifted my phone and snapped the plates like I owned them. The car pulled away faster than it had arrived and turned hard. Mate watched from the window with his jaw set and eyes bright. We are boring them by staying calm, he whispered, almost smiling. At home, we ran drills like a firehouse without alarms. Signal 1 means ushers close the center aisle. Signal 2 means the band plays loud until the interruption ends. Signal 3 means guard escort to the exit with cameras rolling. We practiced the hand cues until my shoulders ached and my brain quieted. Around midnight, my sister pinged me a risky screenshot. A new message in the family thread with a borrowed tone. Tomorrow we restore order, written by an uncle I barely see. Under it, a photo of the preacher's flyer with my surname underlined. She sent a single thumbs down and then went offline. I forwarded the image to the manager and to our lawyer friend. We are not canceling, I added because people mistake silence for surrender. The reply came fast and simple and perfect. I will stand near the soundboard with a polite smile. I pictured that smile and tasted relief like cold water. Sleep would not come, so I ironed my shirt until it behaved. Small control for a larger storm that refused to blink. I laid out cufflinks because they are harder to grab mid-scuffle. Mate wrote names on place cards with a steady wrist and steady breath. We traded tasks until the night felt caged but not cruel. At 2, the phone rang again with the same blocked number. You have one chance to walk away, the caller warned. You have one chance to witness grace, I answered and hit record. A low chuckle slid through and then the click came. I saved the file and labeled it with tomorrow's hour. Before dawn, I texted Honor a new meeting point behind the venue. She confirmed with a quick checkmark and a simple OK. I added a final line that felt like a vow before vows. You are not alone when they try this. 3 dots hovered and then disappeared like a held breath. Sunrise crawled over the city and pulled us to our feet. We loaded the car with nothing fragile and everything necessary. Mate slipped the envelope into a folder with the recording inside. Security pinged me that they were already parked near the south gate. I closed the trunk and saw my reflection steadier than yesterday. On the way, we rehearsed the first answer we would give. Not to the pastor, not to any heckler with cash in their pocket. To each other if the aisle turned hostile or loud. I choose you even if the room shakes, we practiced in unison. I drove faster, not reckless, just enough to meet the moment. I spotted Anna near the loading ramp and lifted 2 fingers. She stepped from behind a pillar and pressed the envelope into my palm. Manager first, I told her, and she nodded without flinching. Mate scanned the lot while our guards spread out like chess pieces. A horn blared twice from the street and my pulse answered. Inside the office, the manager clicked the recorder and pointed at the folder. Anna placed the envelope on the desk and named the drop-off spot. Same script as last time, different messenger, she added, eyes steady. Can you identify him today if he shows up? She breathed through her nose and tapped the counter twice. We walked the route from side door to soundboard without small talk. The tech handed me the cut switch and watched for my grip. Test it now, he said, chin tilted toward the stage. I flipped the toggle and the speakers died mid-jingle. He grinned and handed me a spare with a wink. Backstage, my sister materialized with a hoodie and sharp focus. Uncle is in the parking lane with 2 church friends, she whispered. None of them are on the list, she shoved her phone into my hand. In the photo, the preacher stood by the trunk with a binder. I felt the ground tilt, then steady under my shoes. We shifted the rehearsal 15 minutes earlier with a text blast. Guests trickled in slower than usual, watching our ushers' hands. I greeted each person with short warmth and layered instructions. Phones off during vows, no objections during the ceremony, 0 exceptions. Most people nodded quickly, a few bristled, one laughed too long. The sedan from yesterday slipped past the gate and parked crooked. A man in a blazer stepped out and adjusted his cuff. He walked straight toward Anna with a salesman's smile and raised eyebrow. Got second thoughts, he asked, tone smooth enough to slide. Our nearest guard moved between them and held up a palm. Name for the guest list, I asked, soft but firm. He flashed a church business card like it was a passport. Spiritual advisor, he announced, throat lifted like a trophy. Advisor waits outside unless invited, I answered and pointed at the sign. His mouth quirked, then flattened when the guard didn't move. Anna's jaw worked once, then she did something unexpected. She pulled out her phone and started a live video. This is the man who tried to pay me, she said. Her voice didn't shake, which told me she had crossed a line. He stepped back fast and covered his face with the card. The preacher approached the gate with brisk steps and a pasted smile. Here to bless the rehearsal, he announced, volume meant for listeners. Rehearsal is closed, the manager answered from my shoulder, arms crossed. Your blessing is scheduled for never, my sister muttered under breath. The preacher's eyes cut to me and hardened like glass. We have concerns about covenant, he said, tilting the binder toward me. Bring them tomorrow and I'll cut your mic, I replied flat. He shifted weight, then tried the crowd instead of the rule. Anyone worried for this young man's soul, he called brightly. A nearby ant snorted and rolled her eyes on purpose. We started the walkthrough to starve the growing audience. Mate took his place, I met him halfway, hands steady. The officiant ran the script until the cue for objections. I raised the switch in clear view and held his gaze. Skip that line today, I said, and he did. Halfway through vows, the sedan door cracked open again. A second man emerged with a folded phone and a crisp gait. He chatted into the mic piece and scanned for gaps. Our third guard intercepted and directed him toward the sidewalk. The man smiled thinly, then wrote something on his palm. We wrapped the rehearsal early and shifted to the side room. Anna slid the envelope into a plastic sleeve and exhaled slowly. I can testify right now if needed, she offered, shoulders squared. Tomorrow is the stage, Mate answered, hand light on her forearm. Her eyes watered not from fear but from relief daring itself. My sister tugged my sleeve and pulled me to the service alley. "Mom's here," she breathed, pupils big and pleading for care. I followed to the corner and saw her near the back stairs. She stood alone with a toad and a tight mouth. We approached like diffusing, not like greeting. "I came to watch the rehearsal," she started, eyes still on the stairs. "You came to deliver on me." "Sage," I countered because time was thin. Her jaw trembled, then she forced it still with a swallow. "Your father plans a public scene unless you postpone." Heat rose in my chest, but my voice kept level. "You can stop him," I tried, even though I knew better. "I can only warn you," she answered, hands gripping the tote. "Leave through the kitchen after the rehearsal and avoid the lot." "Not running," I said, and the words tasted like brass. She blinked fast and nodded like she expected that. We walked her to the exit where the manager waited. She squeezed my fingers once and focused on Made. "Take care of him when I cannot," she murmured, chin dipped. He nodded and held her gaze without blinking. She turned away quickly, a decision landing on her heels. Back near the stage, the preacher tried a final move. He flipped open his binder and pretended to review logistics. "Tomorrow at objections I will stand unless invited earlier," he teased. I lifted the switch and angled it toward his mouth. He closed the binder and left without shaking hands. As we dispersed, the blazer man reappeared by the sedan. He spoke into his phone, then angled it toward us. "Smile for the donors," he cooed, teeth bared like a trophy. I walked up until my reflection filled his screen. "Tomorrow we film you back," I said, and he blinked. In the dressing hall, Made traced the signal cues on my palm. He breathed with me until my rhythm matched his shape. "We are not cornered," he murmured, forehead near mine. "We built exits and we own the lights." I nodded once and sealed the plan in my chest. We left through the staff door and crossed to our car. The sedan idled in the lane with its headlights dimmed. A third figure sat in the back seat and watched us. He raised 2 fingers like he understood our cues. I raised none and backed out slow, so he followed. The fire alarm yelped twice, then cut off mid-wail. I was already moving toward the panel with the manager. A gloved hand hung near the test key and snapped back. The usher caught the wrist and twisted until the glove fell. The man bolted for the stairs and laughed once on the run. Security chased him to the loading bay and boxed him in. He threw up a church flyer like it granted immunity. The manager photographed his face and the scratched hand. "Police already called," he announced with a dry nod. The man quieted, then asked if redemption counted as a pass. I took the main hall and counted breaths like beats. Made paced the aisle once and checked the signal cues. We tested the mute toggle while the band played scales. The sound died clean, then returned on a crisp downbeat. My chest loosened one notch, but the knot stayed ready. Anna arrived through the service door with our lawyer friend. She handed over a thumb drive without lifting her chin. "Recorded offer," she said, sleeve pushed to show steady hands. The lawyer watched the timecode and nodded once. "Backup saved," he confirmed, and my pulse settled a degree. A vendor rolled in a cake cart and avoided eye contact. "Too tall, too fast, wrong badge." I blocked the wheels with my shoe and pointed down. He mumbled about timing and tried to push through anyway. 2 ushers pivoted and parked the cart beside the wall. I lifted the lid just enough to view the top. A banner waited under the frosting with a staged message. "Real groom arriving soon," written like a joke without teeth. We sealed the lid and wheeled it to the office. The manager locked it away while his jaw ticked. At the front doors, my sister stood with the guest list. She checked bracelets and eyes, not smiles. 3 cousins tried to slip extra people into the line. She barked their full names like a drill captain. They retreated, offended, but they retreated. A black car idled at the curb, windows cracked. My father stepped out and adjusted his cuffs with ceremony. He walked straight to the threshold and paused on purpose. "Last chance to keep our name," he began, voice smooth. "Last chance to keep mine," I answered, hands at my sides. He glanced past me toward the stage and smirked lightly. "Your mother wants quiet, give us that mercy." "Quiet happens when you stop," I planted both feet. A flicker crossed his mouth, then the old steel returned. "Objections will be made," he concluded, and he brushed past. Made met me halfway with a palm to my sternum. "We go 1 minute early," he whispered, and I nodded. The officiant waited at the side door and adjusted his notes. "No objections line," I reminded him, tapping the page twice. He folded the page and tucked it out of sight. In the aisle, an older man tried to stand and bless us. Our lawyer slid beside him and offered a printed statement. "Cease and desist for religious harassment," he announced evenly. The man read 2 lines and sat without looking up. The pew around him leaned back as if on command. The lights flickered once, then once more like a dare. I glanced at the tech booth and saw a hand leave a breaker. We had our own generator on standby for this trick. The tech flipped the back up and gave me a thumbs up. The room brightened to normal and stayed that way. Anna moved to the aisle end and fixed her stare on me. She lifted her phone and showed the paused video frame. The briber's face filled the screen with perfect clarity. She mouthed ready in case anyone asked for proof. I nodded and felt gratitude hit like a quick wave. Ushers closed side doors just before the music cue. The band leader waited for my signal and kept the tempo soft. I looked at Mate and he looked at me. We started down the aisle faster than planned by inches. Every step traded dread for action like a fair exchange. Halfway forward, the preacher appeared near the rear entrance. He raised a hand and drew breath for a speech. I lifted the remote and went still as stone. The band surged loud enough to drown the first word. Security reached him and guided him sideways without force. Up front, our officiant spoke the opening with a steady cadence. Promises came next, crisp lines that landed clean. A chair scraped behind us with deliberate noise and false bravado. I turned slightly but did not break the circle. The scrape stopped like a dog corrected off-leash. My mother stood near the doorway with her purse crooked. Her eyes traveled from my face to our joined hands. No plea, only a tight nod that looked like surrender. She touched the frame of the door and stepped back. I stored that image because I knew it would matter. We reached the vow exchange and paused as rehearsed. Mate spoke first with a voice that never wavered. "I choose us when voices rise and when rooms turn." He squeezed my fingers and breathed out slow. Heat climbed my throat but did not break me. I spoke next with the sentence we practiced in the car. "I choose you even if the ground opens under us." The room tightened, then loosened like a pulled knot. The officiant asked for affirmation and waited a beat. "Yes," I answered, and my lungs finally listened. Noise erupted at the rear as the preacher tried again. I hit the mute and watched his mouth move silent. He waved his binder like a flag that no one saluted. The band climbed into a bright run and kept him drowned. The guards walked him out while he pantomimed outrage. Rings arrived without ceremony and stayed on our hands. We turned to face the people who chose to stay. Faces I knew and faces I never expected to see. Applause built slow, then sharp, not loud, just clear. I looked at the doorway and saw my father gone. The officiant lifted the final line and invited the kiss. We closed the gap with relief and with precision. Someone near the back stood to clap in a careful rhythm. The sound spread like a signal we had waited for all week. I braced for the next move because victory never comes unchallenged. The first toast started and the mic popped like a warning. I scanned the back wall and spotted a hand near the cable. 2 fingers from me, and the bandleader raised the volume. The saboteur retreated into the crowd and fumbled his phone. I felt the room lean forward for the next stunt. Anna stepped onto the small stage and lifted the envelope. "Before anyone ruins this," she announced, voice clear and quick. "This is the cash I was offered to lie." She held it high while our lawyer filmed from the aisle. Murmurs shifted into a low growl that pointed outward. A man in a neat suit pushed through with false authority. "Venue inspection," he declared, flashing a laminated badge. The manager checked the seal and kept his face blank. "That badge expired last spring," he replied, crisp and final. Security formed a lane and walked the inspector toward daylight. Near the exit, my father blocked their path with 2 relatives. He raised his palms as if calming a skittish animal. "Let's end the circus," he announced, eyes on the guests. "Bring out the truth about his girlfriend," his chin lifted. Anna smiled without humor and pointed at the recording screen. Our lawyer connected the thumb drive to the projector. The offer played with dates and names and numbers. The buyer's voice matched the man who faked inspection. Gasps didn't matter, but the silence after did. My father's jaw tightened like a door jammed wrong. He pivoted to me with a new tactic ready. Annul today and we talk tomorrow like family. I stepped closer until his cuff brushed my wrist. Bless us or leave, I told him, breath steady. His pupils narrowed like he understood the cost. The band cut to background while the manager approached politely. Sir, will you congratulate them or step outside to cool down? A vein ticked along his temple, then he forced a smile. Fine, congratulations, he said, voice flat and practiced. He clapped twice and aimed for the crowd like a politician. The preacher reappeared carrying a megaphone under his coat. He lifted it fast and took a breath to launch. I raised the remote and gave the loudest cue we had. The band crashed into a celebratory riff that swallowed him whole. Security pried the device free and the room cheered the confiscation. My mother slipped from the corridor and approached the cake table. She touched my arm and looked me straight in the face. I warned him he chose this path, her voice trembled. I do not have control over that man anymore. She pressed a small card into my palm and stepped back. I flipped the card and read a hotel and room number. Tonight if you need a safe conversation, the note said. She didn't wait for an answer, she just nodded once. The gesture landed heavy and then turned strangely light. I pocketed it before someone decided to stage another scene. A server rolled the cake out without asking permission. We intercepted and steered it toward the office again. The manager unlocked the door and cracked the lid. The frosting banner still waited like a timed insult. He covered it and locked the door with a firm snap. A trembling cousin edged toward the mic with watery eyes. Maybe we all need to pray, he offered, gaze flitting. The officiant stepped beside him and spoke quietly into his ear. Pray in your seat and bless them by listening. The cousin sat down and stared at his shoes. Outside, sirens approached and then faded at the intersection. Police never entered, but the message traveled through whispers. The fake inspector was already gone, vanished during applause. Our lawyer shrugged and slipped me a number for follow-up. We have enough for a report if you want it. Mate squeezed my fingers and tilted his head toward the dance floor. Let's own this moment, he said, eyes bright and steady. We moved to the center and the band found a groove. People joined, tentative first, then fully committed. I kept one eye on the doors for a final charge. Two relatives marched toward us with hard steps and set jaws. They raised their phones like tiny torches of judgment. Before they reached us, my sister stepped into their path. She lifted her own phone, already live and unshakable. Keep walking or smile for the same audience. They hesitated, then peeled off toward the drink station. The room exhaled and the rhythm settled into something human. I felt a shift inside my ribs, like finally choosing breath. Not victory, not yet, just ground that no longer slid. Across the hall, my father watched and rehearsed his exit. He approached the stage and tapped the mic with 2 fingers. The manager moved faster and blocked the stand with his forearm. Program is closed, he announced with polite steel. My father's lips curled, then flattened under the stare. He stepped down and signaled his friends to follow. At the threshold, he turned back for one last dart. You will regret this when the world forgets you. The words were meant to cut, but they missed. I looked at Mate and felt the future answer. We clinked glasses and the room lifted around us. Anna joined us and held up her phone again. 200 people watching already, she reported with a grin. Enough eyes to keep you safe until morning. I thanked her and pulled her into a quick hug. Trust replaced D. Read and stayed where it landed. The bouquet toss turned into a guard drill by accident. Someone tried to rush the circle from the service door. Our team flowed in with choreographed calm and firm hands. The intruder backed away when the cameras swung toward him. He disappeared into the alley, but not before glancing up. That glance struck me as a promise, not a retreat. Another attempt would come, maybe tonight, maybe after checkout. I filed it next to the hotel room number, burning my pocket. Choices waited beyond the music and the laughter. The story wasn't cured, but it was mine again. We cut a smaller cake the kitchen provided without flourish. Clean slice, quick bites, no speeches. The crowd started to relax in a way that felt earned. The applause never roared, yet it carried weight. I checked the doors one more time and met my mother's gaze. She lifted her hand once, not a wave, a signal. Later, her mouth shaped silently, almost pleading. I nodded because I understood the risk of that meeting. I also understood what changed inside me today. We had crossed a point that could not be reversed. When the band packed up, we walked to the side exit. The air felt cooler against our faces, practical and clean. Our driver pulled up and opened the back door with a grin. Where to first, he asked, one hand on the roof. I looked at Mate, then at the card in my palm. Hotel stop, I answered, and he raised his eyebrows. Short visit, I added, and the engine hummed to life. In the rearview, the venue doors swung once and stilled. I thought about tomorrow and the broadcasts already moving. Then I thought about tonight and the final conversation waiting. We reached the hotel and I knocked once, then twice. The peephole darkened and the chain slid back with care. The door opened a palm's width and my mother pulled us inside. Lobby is full of watchers, she whispered, eyes fixed on mine. Your father is downstairs with that preacher again. She pointed to a suitcase by the bed and breath shallow. I booked out under a different name, she murmured, hands shaking. I am leaving him tonight if I can get downstairs. Her gaze darted to the door like it was counting steps. I felt the room tilt toward a decision that couldn't wait. Her phone buzzed on the dresser and lit up the wall. She flipped it face down and pushed it toward me. Do not answer if it is him, she urged, jaw tight. Mate checked the peephole and turned the deadbolt once. We need a clean exit before they move, he said. I called the concierge and asked for a service elevator. Discreet transfer to the garage, I requested, voice controlled. A pause stretched, then an OK arrived with a room number. 2 minutes, the clerk promised, and my chest found a cadence. Mother grabbed her coat and tucked the card back into mine. Footsteps slid past the door and stopped like they recognized us. A knuckle rapped the wood twice and paused for effect. Housekeeping, a deep voice offered, too smooth to trust. I signed to Mate and pointed toward the inner corridor. We stood silent while the peephole glared like an eye. The footsteps retreated and the hall went quiet, then busy again. We counted to 30 while sirens faintly stitched the distance. I cracked the door and scanned the corner for a camera. 3 men remained by the elevators with folded arms and patient smiles. They looked like customers pretending to wait for a floor. I dialed Anna and kept it brief because time was thin. Start a live stream at the hotel entrance, I asked. We want witnesses before we touch the lobby. On it, she answered, breath quick, voice steady. I felt the plan sharpen like a key in a lock. Down the service corridor, a cleaner unlocked a metal door. Loading lift is open for 5 minutes, he said, glancing around. Mother squeezed my fingers as we moved fast and low. The lift groaned and dropped like it had doubts. I braced my legs and looked at Mate for anchor. The basement opened onto a maze of concrete and painted arrows. A guard met us halfway with a clipboard and a stern nod. Garage cameras are recording your route, he informed, walking ahead. Lobby exit is compromised, side ramp is clear. He waved us toward a waiting shuttle with doors already open. We climbed in and the engine woke with a single cough. From the stairwell, a familiar voice rolled in like a dare. Come up and make peace before you ruin everything. Mother winced but didn't turn around or slow. The driver reversed hard and the ramp swallowed us. At the curb, Anna stood with her phone aimed above shoulders. A few guests pointed and whispered while the counter ticked views. Keep rolling, I said as the door slid wide. We stepped onto the sidewalk and the watcher crowd stiffened. My father emerged from the lobby with 3 men in black hats. He lifted a document and shook it like a victory flag. Rescind this stunt and sign and agree. Meant, he announced, teeth bared. Walk away now and I close the church issue. Mother stepped between us and lifted her chin. I am done being your courier, she told him, voice iron. He tried a softer pitch and aimed it past her shoulder. You can still keep our name intact, he offered with a smile. I took 1 step forward until we shared breath. Our name is intact when it stops being a weapon. The crowd hushed while Anna's lens drank everything. The preacher edged close with a portable mic cupped low. He peered at the camera like a stage had found him. Ladies and gentlemen, he began with polished timing. I raised my hand and signaled our lawyer to speak. Cease and desist is active, came the reply, paper raised. 2 of the men moved to circle us with practiced calm. Mate angled his body and blocked one shoulder cleanly. Do not touch my husband, he warned, voice ice. The word husband landed and rewired the space around us. My father blinked like he had heard a foreign language. Hotel security arrived with radios clipped and expressions neutral. Parties will separate now, the lead guard announced, stance square. Guests proceed to vehicles or return to rooms. The preacher started a prayer out loud and lifted his palm. Security stepped in and guided the hand downward. My father tried a last strike with an old angle. Anna is his girlfriend, he shouted at the lens. Anna walked forward and held the envelope up high. Your people paid me to lie, she said, eyes blazing. The crowd reacted, but more importantly, stayed filming. He swallowed rage and masked it with a practiced sigh. You are all confused, he murmured to the strangers. I pulled my phone out and opened the recording app. Confused ends with playbacks, I replied, thumb near the button. He saw the trap and finally took one step back. Mother reached for my face and searched it like a ledger. I am leaving with them, she told the men, voice low. She pressed her room key into my palm for safekeeping. Pack later, leave now, she whispered, eyes locked on mine. I nodded and pointed toward the waiting shuttle. We climbed in and doors thumped closed like a promise. Through the glass, my father stood very still and said nothing. The preacher paced in a tight loop with fists clenched. Anna kept streaming as the shuttle pulled into traffic. I exhaled in a long line that felt earned. At a red light, my phone buzzed with a private message. A cousin apologized in 4 sentences and attached screenshots. Chats showed exact sums and names and a schedule. I forwarded everything to the lawyer with a single line. File the report first thing, I wrote, hands steady. Mother leaned back and stared at the city pulling away. Her lips moved like she was naming each street we passed. Home tonight is not a location, she said after a pause. Home is whichever door you do not knock for permission. I felt something close and something open in the same breath. We reached our building and rode the elevator without speaking. Inside the apartment, I dropped the phone onto the table. Mate set the folder beside it and met my eyes. We did not survive today to whisper tomorrow. I nodded and felt the truth lock into place. The phone lit again with 2 messages stacked together. From an unknown number, 3 words and a time demand. From my father, the old sentence delivered like a ritual. I hovered over the thread we created on the first day. Then I blocked the number and watched the icon disappear. Mother walked to the window and looked down at the street. Do you want me to stay here tonight? She asked carefully. Yes, I answered, because I finally could answer clean. Mate unfolded the couch and pointed to the bathroom. Fresh towels in the basket, he offered, voice almost gentle. While she changed, Anna's live reached another peak on my screen. Comments scrolled with names I knew and names I didn't. Support landed faster than the lies had traveled yesterday. I typed a short thank you and closed the app. Noise faded until the apartment felt like hours again. We stood together in the kitchen and counted our breaths. Mate placed his ringed hand over mine and waited. Do we call the police tonight? He asked softly. Yes, in the hotel logs and the venue manager, I answered. He smiled, small and fierce, and went for the laptop. Before sleep, I checked the door and the window latches twice. Old habit, new reason, clear mind. Mother lay down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. Her hand slipped over the edge until it found mine. We held on like people preparing for tomorrow's knock. The night stretched, then softened and finally let go. I did not dream of arguments or staged confrontations. I dreamed of a courthouse with a clerk who did not flinch. Papers moved across a counter and a seal pressed down. I woke ready to walk there and make it real.